Islanders are ready for a run this year, a team that went to Game 7 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Stanley Cup, back-to-back champions, the same Tampa Bay Lightning that met the New York Islanders back-to-back years in the Eastern Conference Finals. So the Islanders want to get over the hump, so bringing in Zdeno Chara and Zach Parise, two veteran players that can play, that have played in the playoffs, that have won. So I think in this kind of offense and defense and the way Barry Trotz likes to play, I think it's a perfect fit for those two players.
Yeah, I think Chara definitely brings the leadership. And you actually brought up something on the Sports Lab Mouse. I didn't realize how many minutes he played last year for Washington, too. That says a lot about his stamina, him being a beast for his age, his size, whatever. He plays a lot, which shows that if somebody gets hurt, if guys struggle in certain games for Barry Trotz, because he is very disciplinary, especially with his defensive system, that they have a veteran they could trust right away. And Chara, being the physical guy that he is, even at his older age, he's going to fit like a glove in that system with Barry Trotz. The physical forwards, physical defensemen, really tough when it comes to the forecheck, and Chara fits that mold perfectly. Parise can be like that in the past. We've seen him mostly do that with the Devils.
He played like that with the Devils.
Even with Minnesota in certain parts. Not as much, but in certain points he did too, which is a good sign in terms of growing that all-around game. And Parise can be a sniper. Now, in terms of his age, in terms of him being a healthy scratch in certain games for Minnesota last year, how much, in terms of minutes, how much lines will he play is another question, but he's still a nice guy to have.
When you look at Zach Parise, if you put him on the third line, and that's probably where he's going to go, he could score 25, 30 goals. If he has a good season, you can see Zach Parise score 25, 30 goals. I don't know if he'll score 25, 30 goals as a third-line player, but they can move him up. If somebody gets hurt, they can move him to the second line. They can move him to the first line. Zach Parise is a great leader, and he is a goal scorer. He could put the puck in the net. He goes on these tangents where he can score 5, 6 goals in 4 or 5 games. So he has the ability to put the puck in the net. And Zdeno Chara, he is a beast. And remember, the Islanders drafted him years and years ago in the third round. They couldn't keep him. That was a Mike Milbury mistake. He goes all over the place. He goes to Boston. He wins a championship over there. Played in a couple Stanley Cup finals. Went down as one of the best defensemen in the league for about 10 years. It was a big mistake that the Islanders let him go, but he's back. And I think Lou Lamoriello really knows where this team is and where this team needs to go, Speedy.
I think, for going back to Parise, I think you're going to see him rotationally, situationally, be on the first and second line sometimes too. I could see him on the power play because of the way he snipes. So he might get the goal total based on that if he can stay healthy, obviously. And again, the stamina, how many minutes he plays. But he's still a very good contributor. Zdeno Chara, he's going to bring the leadership. He has a lot of experience even before Boston. He had a lot of experience with Ottawa growing that team. After he left, I think a couple years later, they went to the Stanley Cup and lost to Anaheim. So he definitely has that kind of leadership capabilities. And even with Washington last year, Washington's defense hasn't been the same in terms of their Stanley Cup team, and even some of the teams that went one and done in the playoffs. They were more known as a defensive team. Now they're more known as an offensive team, and Zdeno Chara still played well with those younger guys in that system as well with Peter Laviolette. So definitely somebody that's played with a lot of good coaches, very coachable, and a great leader that they absolutely need. And even for the young goaltenders and Sorokin too, I think he's somebody that could definitely be a helping
Absolutely.
point.
He's going to absolutely help Sorokin and Varlamov. And we talk about Anders Lee coming back from an ACL. That was a big loss, not having Anders Lee in the playoffs in that 7th game. It could have been a different game if Anders Lee played in the Eastern Conference Finals or throughout the playoffs. But he's back. He's playing with Matthew Barzal. They're still looking for that other player to play beside them. I don't know what's going to go on. As the season progresses, I believe at the trade deadline, if they don't make a move now, they'll wait until the trade deadline and bring somebody in to help out if they need that help on that line, which I believe they will. This team is stacked. This team is definitely one of the top 5 teams in the NHL, one of the favorites to coming out and winning the whole thing. They really are. With the goaltending and the defensive style of game, and Barry Trotz is the head coach of this team is going to come out really, really strong this year. As far as the Rangers are concerned, Gallant's first year as a New York Rangers head coach, I want to see this depth get built on the defensive side of the puck. I want to see the goaltending. I want to figure out who the number one goaltender is on this team, and moving forward, who the number one goaltender is. And offensively, Zibanejad needs to start off strong early in the season, not wait until the end of the season where he picks up the pace. I know he had COVID-19 early in the season. That affected him very, very much so. But I want to see Panarin. I want to see Zibanejad. I want to see their top-end players show up, especially in the big games.
Yeah, I think both Panarin and Zibanejad had kind of off years in terms of just other circumstances with Zibanejad having COVID at the beginning of the year took him a while to get going. When he did get going, he was very good, though, both winning faceoffs, scoring goals, doing a lot of different things. And same thing with Panarin with the whole Russia thing. They had to go leave and resolve all that. The biggest thing I want to look at is two things. One, how will Gallant's system make the Rangers more physical? Because the Rangers have never been physical with any coach that they've had in my time watching hockey. It always seems like outside of Sean Avery, they really don't have anyone that could be tough and really grind it out.
Which they brought some players in.
Which they did. And hopefully this kind of system works out. Now, obviously, Tortorella was that type of guy with the Rangers, but even so, the Rangers as a whole still wasn't thought of as an overly physical team. With their defensemen, they were more of the block shot type, finesse type, speed type, whatever, even with Tortorella there. So is it an organizational thing that they want to have that kind of philosophy, and can they embrace the change? Because they know they need to embrace the change. In a speed era of hockey, a finesse era of hockey, you need to have some level of physicality to win. And that's going to make a difference if they want to not only make the playoffs, but do well in the playoffs and be a tougher out. So hopefully these grinder type guys that they brought in, and hopefully that coaching style will be able to make a difference for that team. And then the other thing I think is the two young players, Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere, both top picks. Will they make their next step? Capo Caco kind of regressed after his rookie year where it looked like he was showing promise towards the end. He had a bad year, and Lafreniere had a rough start to the year, then he progressed in the second half. Can both of those guys get going and maybe elevate themselves?
Caco's the most important person, because if he doesn't have a good season, the Rangers are going to look to trade him because he has not fit with the Rangers.
Yep.
He's a great player, great talent. I remember when the Rangers drafted him. Oh, my God, we got the best player in the draft. He has not really provided the offense that a lot of people thought he was going to provide. And by the way, Fox is looked like every bit of the player that they traded for, and he was the Norris Trophy winner. He was the best defenseman in the league last year. He was fantastic. But if they don't find another defensive pairing or another couple of defensive players to this team, they're not winning, because you can't win without top-end defensemen. Why do you think that the Islanders brought in Green from the Devils, obviously a captain who's won with the Devils, and then they brought in Zdeno Chara, who's won with the Boston Bruins? They're bringing in veterans, and they mix them up with some of the young guys, with the Pelliks of the world, and Puloks, who arguably the best defensive pairing in all of hockey. That's their number one, and that's what the Islanders are doing. They're mixing with young and old, and what they're going to do is they're going to move forward with this. They've been planning to win like this since Barry Trotz came to the team. I want to see the same with the Rangers. Gallant is there. If you can bring in some veteran defensemen that can help these younger defensemen grow and benefit through learning through these guys, well, then you bring in those veteran guys to help you win.
At the very least, some guys that are system fits, like some guys that are veterans that could help. I mean, obviously Vegas is a great team, so odds are they're not going to be trading anybody unless they really disappoint this year. But even guys that he played with in Florida, guys that he coached that fit that kind of system, just somebody to contribute more depth, because the Rangers have some ones that have upside. It's just a matter of when will they get there. And if the Rangers want to take the next step, especially with the Metropolitan Division now going back to normal, where Carolina's going to come back into the division. Obviously, the Islanders are still strong. Washington's still strong. The Penguins will be missing Sidney Crosby at the beginning of the season, but they're still going
Malkin too.
Yeah. So the Rangers have to really realize that this is going to be not the same Metro East Division like
They're saying Malkin
year.
could be out for a month, maybe two.
Yeah, that they were able to compete in. And the Flyers, who are probably the biggest disappointment in that division, they're going to be better too.
Oh, they're going to be huge. I think Philadelphia is going to be fun to watch this year. They're going to be mean and gritty, and they have a great, talented bunch of players. As far as their goaltender, too, Carter is going to show up this year.
Yeah,
I believe
he can't play any worse than he did last year.
He's got to show up because I think he's one of the most talented young goaltenders in the NHL. I just couldn't believe how he came out and played last year. But I think that'll change this year. I think this team is going to be a lot better than people expect them to be. Hockey is going to be fun to watch as the season progresses, preseason starts, so get ready for it, Islander and Ranger fans, even if you're a Sabre fan. I did hear that Jack Eichel was stripped of his captaincy, so he is no longer the captain of the Sabres, which will probably tell you that he'll be on his way out one way or another sometime this season. I don't think in the beginning of the season, but as the trade deadline comes around, I think Jack Eichel will be finding himself another team, because teams didn't trust his injury and he didn't pass his physical before the season started. So that's not a good sign for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. Or that Jack Eichel now has to quote-unquote prove himself now with that kind of injury for a guy that's very talented, very productive when he's on the ice, close to a point-per-game player when he's on the ice. He's just only on the ice half the season, it seems like.
It's terrible. I feel bad for the kid. And with his neck injury, he needs to get disc or fusion replacement over there and get his neck fixed and get back on the ice. Because I think, to me, even if he has to miss the whole season, get healthy. That's what I think he needs to do. Because if the Sabres don't want him there, which they obviously don't, okay? If they're taking away his captaincy and he's not the captain of the team anymore, they don't want him there. So if I was Jack Eichel, you're still getting paid. You still got that money. Go get your surgery, get healthy, come back strong, and then teams like the Rangers or the Islanders or somebody like that, or even the Washington Capitals, somebody will make a trade for you, and you go to a team that you want to play for.
And more will emerge in the middle of the season, too, a surprise team, too, that maybe needs the offense, maybe didn't think they were going to do as well as they did, and maybe they make the move.
Go get healthy. That's where I think he needs to go. I think waiting for this surgery makes absolutely no sense. I got the surgery. I got the disc replacement. It was the best thing I ever did. So I think for somebody like Jack Eichel, being that he's 24, 25 years old, he's still a kid. I know he's afraid to get in this surgery, but this is the best thing for him. Right. So I would definitely get that looked at and get that fixed and sit out for the season. If I was his father or if I was his agent, I'd be telling him that. He's still making money. He's still making $10.5 million. Right. Who cares if he misses the season? He's still making a lot of money. And he's one of the highest paid players in the NHL. And one of the most talented ones, too. So hopefully he makes the right decisions as he moves forward. As far as basketball is concerned, Ben Simmons, this has been an absolute joke. I mean, the 76ers are a joke. They're a joke of an organization. Speedy, tell me why.
They have dug their own grave, tried to push the offer too much where you're knocking out contending teams from getting involved. Outside of Toronto, who we know can be good. They had a down year last year, and now we're seeing the Denver Nuggets kind of get involved now, too.
The Pelicans,
but they're kind of that fringe team, too. Like, they're not really the obvious contender. They're a team on the rise, all the young talent that they have.
Golden State, Memphis.
Yeah. Golden State was in the beginning, but now they're kind of in and out. So they don't want to trade anybody. And now Andrew Wiggins coming out with the vaccine thing. Maybe now they try to trade him in that kind of deal. Maybe Golden State gets back into it, but they're kind of the favorites a month ago, and now it's more the Nuggets or the Raptors. And you mentioned Cleveland, I think, a couple days ago, too, as being one of the favorites, too. The Nuggets are obviously a contending team. Toronto should be a contending team, but most of the teams in the running for him now are not obvious contenders, where I don't think they're going to push as hard because they don't know where the state of their teams are. So the Sixers have really dug themselves their own graves. Daryl Morey has had these kind of problems with Houston and gets too extreme at times. He tried to build his Rockets like the Warriors, and now he's trying to do the same thing with the Sixers, where they're trying to get other players back, or they're trying to get this massive haul back, and it's not going to work for somebody that has a big deficiency when it comes to shooting and got exposed in the playoffs by the Hawks, where if they foul him, that's going to really hinder that entire game plan.
To me, Ben Simmons, I know he doesn't want to be a 76er. He came out and said that he will not practice. He will not go play this season if he's not traded. When a team gives you a $186 million contract, a max contract, and you're not going to deliver the proposing opportunity after signing that contract, well, that just tells you how much of a player you are and who you are as a player. Because to me, when somebody's giving you almost $30 million a year, you should be going and playing no matter what. If you don't want to be there, eventually the team will figure out a way to trade you. But for you to go out and tell the team that you're not playing, you're not going to play this year, you're not going to go to practice, you're not going to get ready for preseason with the team, you're going to sit out, that shows you the type of person that you are.
And also the biggest problem, too, is with this shot, he doesn't trust it enough to even shoot it. Now, some of that could be game plan based, obviously. The Sixers are trying to get a top seed. They're trying to win a playoff game. You don't want him chucking shots. But at the same time, if you don't gain confidence, other teams won't gain confidence in that, and they'll still game plan for you to say, all right, I'm not going to trust this guy to shoot. Let's just go guard the pass, and maybe we'll get a steal or something like that. That's a big problem when it comes to not having that kind of volume. Even if his efficiency is still going up, he shoots a little better from a free throw line. He shoots a little better from three. If he doesn't shoot often, they're still not going to game plan for it, and that's going to make it hard for a team to say, all right, I'm going to give you, let's say, 2 first-round picks and these 2 players to be able to do that, where you're going to hinder your own depth.
As far as the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets are concerned, well, the Brooklyn Nets are getting ready for a championship competitive season. I think that they're going to have a very good chance of win this year. If Kyrie Irving and Harden and Kevin Durant can stay healthy with the opposition of players that they brought in the offseason, and they're a bunch of veterans. This is not a young team. This is one of the oldest teams in basketball, and they're expected to win this year. Even with the LA Lakers, as good as they are and how they built that team, the LA Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets are expected to go to the finals this year and play against one another with the talent that they've added, with the additional players that they've had on the team for the last 2 years. So when you look at both teams, I expect the Brooklyn Nets to have a very strong season, and hopefully they can stay healthy with Kyrie Irving and Harden, because if they can't, the Eastern Conference is much better. Now, the 76ers, if they don't have Ben Simmons, they're waiting to trade Ben Simmons. They might be a little bit worse. Maybe not. Maybe they're better.
Because it depends on if they get an instant impact player back in that
But
trade.
even if they don't, Ben Simmons didn't really instantly give you the offense that you needed. So maybe they play better without Ben Simmons shooting the ball. Who knows? But Milwaukee is still going to be good, even though they lost some players. Miami's going to be a lot better because they added some players. The Knicks are better. I mean, they added Kemba Walker. They added some players, Fournier. I mean, this Eastern Conference is getting stronger and stronger by the year. So if the Nets have a chance to win, it's this year. They had a chance last year, but this year is the most important year for them because if they don't win, I believe Kevin Durant will be gone. I believe Kyrie Irving will be gone. I think Harden will stay because I think Harden likes it here. I think he likes it in Brooklyn. I think his whole point was to move to a big city and obviously finish his career in a big city like New York.